Many of you might not know this, but I'm a bit of a chair nerd. Back in 2024, I went down a rabbit hole in search of the best ergonomic chair for my body because I sit so much for my work. I posted a super in-depth video in 2024 comparing 3 high-end ergonomic chairs, where I concluded that I liked the Anthros chair the most. I've been sitting in the Anthros every day since, and last year in June, Anthros released the version 2 of the chair. So in this video, I want to share my long-term experience with the original Anthros chair, or the V1, and talk about how it compares to the updated V2, which is this one. Now, instead of giving you a laundry list of all the changes, I'll focus on how some of the changes in V2, or the lack thereof, impact my real-life sitting experience. I've also invited my wife to sit on both chairs and share her thoughts as a 5 feet tall person. Full disclosure, Anthros did send me both the V1 and the V2 chairs, but before you dismiss this video, just know that none of my review videos are sponsored by the company that makes the products I'm reviewing. No cash exchange hands, no agreement or contract was signed, there's no marketing brief to follow, and Anthros didn't get to see this video before you do. I don't rely on this channel for a living. I do this for fun, and I'm here to inform, not to sell. There are things I don't like about the Anthros V2, and you'll see that I do not hesitate to tell you about them. I have a link in the description that will knock $200 off the chair if you decide to buy it. It will support this channel, but I also included a non-affiliate link. Time has proven that the build quality of the V1 chair is exceptional. After 17 months of daily usage, the Anthros chair is still in brand new condition. Everything looked pristine, and everything works just like day one. The fabric on the seat and the 2 back support pieces don't have any sign of wear and tear. I use the 2 adjustment knobs multiple times a day, every day, and they still work perfectly just like day one. They didn't get loose or harder to turn. The chair is really well built and it shows. V2's build quality feels exactly the same, so I have no doubt that it will hold up over time like V1 did. Now, in terms of ergonomics, pretty much everything I said I liked and disliked about the Anthros chair in my initial review video still stand. I really enjoy sitting in a chair on a daily basis, and most of the time I don't even think about the chair because it's so comfortable that it just fades in the background, allowing me to focus on what I'm doing. I actually sit in it for too long sometimes, and I'm getting really comfy right now. I just have to remind myself to get up and stay active. I still really love the independent pelvic support and the upper back support system because it allows me to customize exactly how I want my back to be supported. If I want to sit extra straight, I can dial in the pelvic support to support my pelvis so I can sit extra straight. If I want to lean forward a little, I can dial in the upper back support like that. So now I'm a bit more forward. Or if I want to open up my hip angle and lean back a little, so I can just dial the upper back support back like that. And now you can see I have a more open hip angle while maintaining an S-curve on my spine. It gives me infinite ways to sit ergonomically throughout the day rather than just a single or a few ways as is the case with most high-end ergonomic chairs. I continue to appreciate the small size of the upper back support because I can do this. And it's very nice. I do this throughout the day, and it's one of those things that isn't a sexy feature but makes a big difference. The seat of Anthros V1 remains the most comfortable seat I've ever sat on any chair. It's honestly unbelievable how comfortable it is, so much so that I look forward to sitting on it all the time. It's holding up very well. There's no indent from my butts being on it 10 hours a day for the last 17 months. The sit bone cutouts are extremely effective in minimizing pressure points. They kind of ruin all other chairs for me because the lack of the sit bone cutouts in other chairs are so obvious in contrast. Now, let's turn our attention to the Anthros V2. I've been alternating between the V1 and the V2 for the last 6 months, and both my favorite change and my biggest gripe in the V2 lie in the seat. But let's start with the positive. Putting them side by side, you can see that Anthros drastically reduced the thickness of the front of the cushion in V2. It may not look like a big difference here, but the sitting experience is really, really different. When I sit in the V1, my thighs are angled upward, but in the V2, they are more parallel to the floor. The reduced thickness at the front of the seat in the V2 provides several benefits. First is that the V2 chair now effectively has a lower seat height. I mentioned in my Anthros V1 review video that Anthros seat doesn't go as low as other chairs. And as a result, I cannot firmly rest my feet on the floor. With Anthros V2, it's just low enough for my feet to finally fully rest on the floor, which is really great. That said, the V2 seat height still doesn't go as low as other chairs, and I feel like anyone shorter than 5'7" or 172 centimeters, which is my height, or anyone with shorter legs than mine might still wish the V2 could go even lower.
This is the lowest it will go, and I am not even near the floor.
Okay, how much?
This is the absolute lowest it can go. I can't even flex my foot to get onto the ground.
Another benefit of Anthros V2's reduced thickness at the front of the seat is that it allows you to have a lower desk height. For proper ergonomics, the general recommendation is that your desktop is supposed to be right under your elbows with your shoulders relaxed, so your forearms can be parallel to the floor while using the keyboard and mouse. I'm sitting in a V1 now, and because my thighs are slightly angled upward when sitting, I need to set my desk to be higher than I want to avoid my knees hitting the desk's center support beam. As a result, you can see that my forearms are actually slightly angled upward, which is not ideal. I'm now sitting in the V2, and you can see that there's a gap between my knees and the desk center support beam because my thighs are now much more parallel to the floor. This means that I can lower the desk to a much more ergonomic height without my knees hitting the support beam. My elbows are now much more parallel to the floor, which is a more ideal posture. I'm going to do that again so that you can see the difference. Pay attention to my elbow angle and see how it changes. So this is how high I need to have my desk when I'm in the V1, and this is how much lower I can set my desk height when I'm sitting in the V2. Here's a side-by-side comparison so you can really see how the desk height affects my elbow angle while using the computer. So, a third benefit of Anthros V2's reduced thickness at the front of the seat is that it makes the chair more versatile. For example, I have this side table here that I sometimes put in front of my desk when I'm learning European Portuguese, and I want to write on this notebook. So in this scenario, I'm using the chair more like a stool. I'm not using the backrest, and I want to scooch forward so I can make notes when I'm learning. And Anthros V1 is terrible for this scenario. And that's because while the back half of the V1 seat is incredibly comfortable to sit on thanks to the sit bone cutouts, that's not the case for the front half because it feels raised and much firmer. There's also like a clear point somewhere around here in the middle on the V1 seat where the sit bone cutouts start, and it's not really comfortable to sit on this area in the middle either. So you really only want to sit around like here with the V1. In contrast, V2's cushion gives you a much more uniform sitting experience across the entire seat. Sitting at the back half feels the same as sitting in the middle or the front. It doesn't really matter where you sit, so it works really well when I need to just sit down here and write on the table. I could be like this, or I could be like, sometimes I'm like this, or I could be like this.
You can really tell this part of the cushion in the first half is more elevated. Like you can really feel that slope.
Yeah.
Especially then when you sit back and then the slope is even more noticeable. So like this first half to be sitting on does feel like a little bit firmer than if you're sitting all the way back here.
What about this one, the same test?
There's no difference.
Oh, okay, wait, that's extremely important. So for this one, there's no difference.
I don't feel any difference.
Front seat, back, no different.
No.
Now, let me tell you about my least favorite change in Anthros V2. I don't know if Anthros changed the seat cushion or if it's because of the new fabric. The V2 seat just feels much firmer compared to V1's. It doesn't feel like it's just a V1 seat with the front reduced. It feels like a completely different cushion that, in my experience, is not as comfortable long-term as the V1 cushion overall.
Immediately, I will say, despite the scratchiness, this cushion is a lot softer.
It's a lot softer, eh?
A lot softer.
Yeah. Would you say it's much softer, like noticeably?
Yeah, like the moment I sat on it, it felt more like Yeah, it's a bit more forgiving to your weight. This one doesn't feel like it has much give.
Which one would you say is more comfy, the cushion?
This one for sure.
This one's more comfy?
Yeah.
Like,
I think I could sit in this one more long term just because it is softer.
Okay.
And more forgiving.
Sitting in the V1 feels very much like you're sitting on a cloud. There are no pressure points, and any pressure on your butt and thighs are very well distributed. However, on the V2 seat, I don't know if I'm just too light because I'm only 118 pounds or 53 kilos, but I can barely feel the sit bone cutouts. It's just much firmer, and I don't get the same feeling of my butt and thighs sinking nicely into a cloud that I do with V1. I feel like my sit bones are feeling a bit more compressed as a result. Keep in mind that while I prefer V1's softer seat, others might prefer a firmer one, so I would recommend trying out the chairs in person. Let's take a look at the differences in the back support between V1 and V2. You can see that the gap between the two support pieces is much smaller in the V2. This is because the pelvic support bar in V2 gained about 1 inch in height compared to V1's, which makes it feel less localized on my pelvis since it covers a larger area. I quite like this change because one of the criticisms I had with the V1 was that the pelvic support can feel kind of jarring if you're not used to it. It does a great job at forcing you to sit properly, but it almost feels too corrective at times, and I cannot slouch at all, even just for a little bit. With V2's thicker pelvic support, it allows me to relax and just lounge a little when I want to. However, my wife has a very different experience on this.
I find the gap easier to bear with on that chair.
You like the bigger gap here?
Bigger gap actually feels a bit more forgiving.
Really?
Yeah. Again, don't know if it's just because I'm short.
No. That's good. We want the short person's perspective.
Okay, I find the gap on this chair between the two cushions is more forgivable for my spine. Yeah, I can just kind of feel my spine like slumping towards that gap. The gap. And I don't feel it slumping as much in that one.
I was really surprised, and this is why I always tell you need to try out any high-end ergonomic chairs yourself in person because everyone's physique is different. The V2's upper back support also gained about 2 inches in height compared to the V1. However, the extra 2 inches are added at the top here instead of at the bottom. So what this means is that if you have a shorter torso like me and my wife, Anthros V2's upper back support will remain too high for you.
I don't know on a normal person, like there is still so much cushion above my shoulders.
Actually,
I don't know how normal that is for anyone who's not 5 feet.
It doesn't cause any discomfort, but I do feel that it might be more comfortable had my back been able to make full contact with the upper back support. This is why I still think it would be really awesome if we could move the upper back support up or down to better accommodate people of different heights. The fabric on the V2 chair is a huge upgrade compared to the V1. The V1 fabric is durable, but it doesn't look very good and it has a really rough feel to it. It doesn't irritate my skin or anything, but I've just never seen chairs with fabric like this before. It doesn't suit a high-end chair in my opinion. V2's fabric feels much smoother and much higher end, and it looks much better.
It's a very different fabric, just a touch.
Yeah, fabric is different.
This feels very smooth. It feels almost like a couch cushion. If I was wearing shorts, I think this fabric would be much nicer to sit on long term. Like this is almost kind of scratchy.
This is scratchy.
A little scratchy.
There are now also seams on the fabric around the seat, the pelvis support, and the upper back support. I do think that the seams add some nice outlines to the chair and they make the chair look nicer. The armrests on the V2 are unfortunately exactly the same as those on the V1. You can change their height, depth, pivot, and width. But my biggest issue with them is that they can't get close enough to my torso for me to rest my elbows on them, which kind of defeats the whole purpose of having armrests. This is as close as they can get to my torso, and if I pull my sleeves up, you can see that my elbows aren't even touching the armrest, so I can't really use them most of the time. I also don't like the round shape. I find that when I do use them, my elbows would just easily kind of slide off because there's a slope here, and it's not very good.
These armrests are not comfortable.
Yeah, I don't like them either. Yeah, that's okay.
These are really not comfortable for me. The curve bothers me, the curved top of it, and I also find like moving it in and out is like, it always feels like you're too strong and you always end up
breaking the chair,
or just you're putting it too many levels more than you want. I feel like it overcorrects.
Right.
It's easy to
either like you go too far.
Yeah, you have to use, I have to use both hands to make sure I'm not like Hulk smashing it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hulk Wrapping up this review, I want to take a step back and talk about the fundamental differences between the Anthros V1 and V2. While they look alike and one is an updated version of the other, I think they offer two very different sitting experiences and probably appeal to different user groups. While they both do a great job at helping you sit ergonomically, V1 feels a lot more prescriptive and restrictive in its approach, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. I believe that when you sit in the V1 as intended, the comfort and ergonomic benefits are unparalleled. But that's the thing though, you have to sit in it properly to get this benefit. For people who are very diligent about their ergonomics like me, the V1 is perfect. It does one thing extremely well. But for those who are more casual about ergonomics, or maybe they're looking for a more all-around ergonomic chair, Anthros V1 might feel too corrective or too much like a medical device. The V1 also feels like it's designed mostly for working in front of a computer, and it's not very comfortable if you need to write or do something on your desk. V2 in comparison is much more forgiving and accommodating in terms of how you sit in it. It feels less niche, it's more lenient about your posture, and it allows you to just sit in it more casually. I think V2 is much more of an all-around ergonomic chair that will work for people who want good sitting postures, but also to be able to sit casually. While the V1 is like a specialty chair that has a superior seat and offers unparalleled comfort when sitting in it as intended. But it's not as friendly to those who are not super particular about ergonomics. For the purpose of fixing your sit or helping you sit with the best postures, I think both V1 and V2 are better than most high-end ergonomic chairs out there. That's it for the video. Give it a like if you find it helpful, sit properly, stay healthy, and I'll see you next time.